Hello and welcome to the Federal. I'm S. Srinivasan. Kerala Governor Arif Mohammed Khan and Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan have been at loggerheads for a while. In December 2020, the elected CPIM government headed by Pinarayi sought an early convening of the State Assembly to discuss and reject the farm laws. The governor refused to give permission, reportedly questioning the merit of such a move. Subsequently, the CM and the governor managed to strike a working relationship. But the flare-up continued, and now it has become almost a daily affair. In the latest incident, the two sides, CPIM government, including the Chief Minister, and the Raj Bhavan, are locked in a controversy over appointments of vice chancellors in state universities. On October 23, in an unprecedented move, the governor demanded that the vice chancellors of these universities must resign within 24 hours. The government hurriedly approached the High Court on a Diwali day and got a reprieve till November 3. But before the dust settled down on October 25, the governor fired a fresh salvo, saying that the finance minister, and I quote, K. Balagopal has ceased to enjoy my pleasure, unquote. And therefore, the chief minister should, and I quote, consider the matter with the seriousness it deserves and take action which is constitutionally appropriate, unquote. Now, Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan immediately rejected the demand, saying that the governor has limited powers and added that, and I quote, if someone declares that he would act contrary to the constitution and the existing legal system and move in that direction, that cannot be stated to be valid, unquote, he said. The governor in his letter, quoting news reports, had earlier said that Balagopal has made serious comments by saying that those coming from states like UP may not be able to understand the democratic functioning of universities in Kerala. Balagopal had apparently said that the vice chancellor of Benares Hindu University was functioning with 50 to 100 security guards when he visited the university as an MP. Now, an angry governor further wrote, and I quote, a minister who deliberately violates the oath and undermines the unity and integrity of India cannot continue to enjoy my pleasure. In these circumstances, I am left with no option but to convey that Finance Minister Balagopal has ceased to enjoy my pleasure, unquote. To discuss the issue, I have with me PDR Achary, former Secretary General of the Lok Sabha, who brings a nuanced understanding of constitutional niceties and parliamentary conventions. Welcome, Mr. Achary.
Thank you, Srinivasan.
And my first question is, can a governor withdraw his pleasure and sack a minister? What does the Constitution say?
Well, if you look at Article 164 of the Constitution, it says that the Chief Minister is appointed by the governor and other ministers are appointed by the governor on the advice of the Chief Minister. And all ministers shall hold office during the pleasure of the governor. So this is what is mentioned in Article 164. Now, if you look at these words, all ministers hold office during the pleasure of the governor. It would literally mean that these governors can continue in office only so long as they enjoy the pleasure of the governor. Some people think that that is the correct position, but that is not the correct position. The point is, it is true that the governor's pleasure is the key factor here. What is meant by the governor's pleasure? Let us understand that. Is it a kind of a personal pleasure, individual, which he can use anytime he likes? Or the moment he feels offended, he can withdraw the pleasure? Is it such a pleasure that Article 164 of the Constitution mentions? Well, it is not so. Because this pleasure which is mentioned under Article 164 is a constitutional pleasure, which means the governor cannot exercise this pleasure doctrine at will. When there is a government in office which enjoys majority in the legislature, then it is presumed that the governor's pleasure is there. And when a government loses its majority in the assembly, then we can presume that the governor's pleasure has ended. So the pleasure is intimately connected, inextricably linked with the constitutional order. Therefore, when the government enjoys majority in Kerala, governor cannot discontinue his pleasure. His pleasure is supposed to continue as per the constitution. Now comes the question whether the governor can discontinue his pleasure with regard to a minister, individual minister. Now he can, because the words used in Article 164 are all ministers, not the Council of Ministers, all ministers,
Okay.
which includes individual ministers also, or which means individual ministers. An individual minister can be dismissed. And many ministers have been dismissed like that. Many ministers have been removed from their position. That is not a new thing. But the point here is whether the governor unilaterally withdraw the pleasure from a minister. That cannot happen, and that is not done. A governor cannot unilaterally withdraw the pleasure. In order for the governor to withdraw the pleasure, he should get the advice of the chief minister. Because if you read Article 163, things become very clear. 163 says, there shall be a council of ministers to aid and advise the governor in exercise of his executive functions. Withdrawing the pleasure is a part of the executive function of the governor, which he can perform only and only on the advice of the chief minister.
Yeah. So what I understand is governors are appointed by the president on the advice of the Union Cabinet. In this case, we read it as Prime Minister. And the governor forms part of the state's executive along with the chief minister, his council of ministers, and the advocate general. Now, he's supposed to act on the advice of the state cabinet. Now, would you say that this has been breached here, this understanding?
Yeah. By the governor acting unilaterally, by withdrawing the pleasure unilaterally, he is acting not in accordance with the constitution. That is what Article 154 says. 154 says very clearly that the executive power of the state shall be vested in the governor, who shall exercise it either directly or through officers subordinate to him, which means ministers, in accordance with the constitution. Mark those words. In accordance with the constitution. That means the governor can execute, the governor can exercise the executive powers through the ministers and in accordance with the constitution, which means the governor cannot act except on the advice of the council of ministers.
Yeah.
Therefore, there is no question of governor unilaterally exercising his executive power. That is the scheme of the constitution.
Yeah. Here, I just want to understand another thing. Am I right in saying that a chief minister actually constitutes his cabinet? He picks up his minister. It's the right of a chief minister to select his ministers. And on his advice, the governor gives them the oath of office. Now, that's an appointment procedure. And the same applies when he has to be sacked or he has to be removed. The chief minister consent is once again required. As it is required in the appointment, the same authority, while dismissal also, the chief minister must be concerned. Without this unilaterally, the governor cannot do anything.
Yes. Yes.
Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, see, the other thing is here, looking at the series of controversy that is building over months in Kerala, would you say that there is a complete breakdown of constitutional arrangement as far as the relationship between a governor and the chief minister is concerned? Has it happened in Kerala? Can we say that?
Yes. Actually, there is a fight that is going on between the governor and his government. Now, a fight between the governor and his government is of this level. A fight of this level is unprecedented, because governor is the executive authority of the state. All executive powers are vested in him, and he acts through his ministers. So, in a way, they are just like Atma and Brahma. They are one. As per the Advaita philosophy, they are one. Similarly, the governor and the government, they are one. They act in unison. The governor acts through the ministers. So, governor cannot separate himself and start fighting with the ministers or the government.
You're saying, Mr. Achary, that governor is supposed to be the custodian of the constitution, the real power vests with the elected government. And governor is just a nominal head. He reigns but does not rule. But the point here is the governor is also saying the same, quoting the same constitution to saying that he is taking these measures to, because he's a custodian of the constitution, he's also saying the same thing, his interpretation.
No, it is actually, it is not his interpretation that matters in the overall context of a fight between the governor and his government. Let us look at what the court says. The Supreme Court has said. Supreme Court has said in many judgments, starting from Shamsher Singh versus State of Punjab, ending with Nabam Rabia, I think in 2016 or something, 16 or 18 or something. Supreme Court has consistently held that the governor has no power. Governor is a constitutional head. And as a constitutional head, of course, he is a custodian of the constitution. He has taken oath to defend the constitution, protect the constitution, and so on. But so far as the executive power of the state is concerned, the governor merely acts on the advice of the council of ministers. Governor cannot act except on the advice of the council of ministers, and governor cannot go against the decision of the government. These are the basic positions which have been settled by the Supreme Court through a catena of cases.
So I just, another question I want to ask, you must have gone through the proceedings of the Constituent Assembly. Is there anything there which suggests what should be how should communication between the governor and the chief minister should be conducted? What should be the order of communication? And because why I'm saying it, because now the governor goes and holds an open press conference, and he did it in the case of Vijayan's private secretary case, where she was to be appointed as an associate professor. And he held a press conference and even said that the government's actions are anti-national, anti-social, and it was nepotism. There may be merit in some of what he's saying, but does it really help in, spelling out all these things publicly at a press conference? He could actually try to resolve these issues in some other way, I suppose.
Yes, certainly. Because everything is not written in the Constitution, and that is not possible also. These are some of the things, which have been these norms of conduct, and the communication between the governor and the chief minister. These are all things, of course, so far as the communication between the governor or the chief minister and the governor is concerned, there are definite provisions in the constitution. That is, I think 166, 167 or something. There, it is the duty of the chief minister to communicate all decisions of the government to the governor regularly. And the governor has the right to seek information from the government on certain issues or whatever he wants information on. So these are all provided for in the constitution. Apart from that, because everything cannot be provided for in the constitution, there are things, which are settled through conventions and practices and all that. The basic idea is that there should be a very cordial relationship between the governor and his government headed by the chief minister. Of course, constitutionally speaking, governor is holding a high constitutional office, and so is the chief minister. He is the head of the government. So the relationship between these two high functionaries under the constitution needs to be very cordial and harmonious, because after all, they function for the benefit of the people. The public interest is the most important thing which should guide their relationship. And that is something, which becomes a casualty in all such open fights. Now, so far as you raised the question about the governor raising the matter about the university, appointment in the university, appointment of some professor or something in the university. There, although it is the same governor who is the chancellor, but chancellor is a statutory position. He is not acting as a governor. Chancellor is a statutory position created by the University Act. And there he has independence. He doesn't have to go by the advice of the Council of Ministers. He can act independently. The law permits him. But the law does not permit him to go to the press, to go to the media and say bad things against the government. Because when he makes an appointment, or when the syndicate makes an appointment, then syndicate is empowered to do that. If there is a grievance against that appointment, if somebody has a grievance, then that grievance can be redressed only by the court, not by the chancellor. Chancellor is not a grievance redressal mechanism. Grievances are redressed because, after all, it involves rights of people. Both the person who has been appointed has a right once he has been appointed, and perhaps the person who has been refused appointment may also have a right. But who will decide these rights? Not the governor. The governor doesn't have judicial powers. The governor is a part of the executive, and so is the chancellor. Therefore, the right forum for deciding these matters is the court. The aggrieved person can go to the court. That is precisely what happens in the government also. A person has been appointed or a person has been promoted, another person has a grievance against that, and that person goes to the court and court decides. It is not that a head of the department, the minister, or the secretary of the department will decide these things. They cannot decide. Because rights are decided. Rights are decided judicially. Rights can be decided only judicially. And judicial power is vested only in the judiciary.
On the other side, when the chief minister knows that there is a certain relationship he has to maintain with the governor as well, why in the case of Kerala, Pinarayi Vijayan, who enjoys absolute control over his ministers, unable to rein some of these ministers in saying what they say publicly? Even that adds to certain displeasure, isn't it?
Yeah, to an extent, yes. But here I would say one thing, because I don't take sides. I just look at things objectively. As I have observed, because the whole thing was started by the governor. He went public on these matters. He went public for no reason, and there was no provocation, apparently. he went public and he said all kinds of things. And as far as I know, the Chief Minister did not react at all. For quite some time, the Chief Minister did not react. And Chief Minister is not a man who will react very violently or anything. He's very placid, he has a very placid temperament. And then, this went on. But then Governor was raising the pitch. At each stage, the pitch will be raised higher and higher. And finally, there were reactions from the government, from the party and all that. So it developed into some kind of a ugly fight. This is precisely what has happened. Well, I agree with you that some of the comments which came from some of the ministers, those comments could have been avoided, particularly in this kind of a surcharged atmosphere. That is the thing. But otherwise, their ministers have not said things, which can be interpreted as seditious and things like that, because this is a word which has been used perhaps by the governor, seditious comments and all that. In fact, the Chief Minister of UP, the Honorable Chief Minister of UP, made some very uncharitable remarks against Kerala when he visited Kerala for campaign. But there was a political reply to that, but he didn't go beyond that. Nobody demanded that the Chief Minister should be sacked, or Chief Minister was making a seditious comments and things like that. So we can say that politicians, have a certain license to say things which other people may not say. That is, rightly or wrongly, in a democratic country, maybe we have to put up with all this. But then one should not be needlessly touchy about things.
Right. Mr. Achary, thank you very much for giving these comments. I think this situation will continue for a while, and we might once again meet to understand what is happening in Kerala. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more interesting updates.